So we're going to talk a little bit more about the bandhas. I made a brief introductory video about intra-abdominal pressure, core breathing, strengthening the core just by using some suction techniques, breathing suction techniques to lift the pelvic floor, pull in the abdomen. And then we were going to go on and talk about the individual bandhas. So we will do that. We'll look at Mulha Bandha today, but as I was sort of refreshing my knowledge and looking at my notes, I thought that I needed to give you more information about the bandhas, and I am actually going to refer to this book. This is called Mulha Bandha, the Master Key. So the word bandha means lock or seal, and it describes how prana in the body is controlled and harnessed. Prana is your life force, it's your energy, and we can give our bodies more energy, more life force by eating really good nutritional food, breathing in fresh, clean air, and providing ourselves with things that nourish us on all levels and nourish the soul, some spiritual ideas of love and forgiveness and compassion, beauty in nature, in art, in music, anything that raises our alpha waves, that gives us a sense of well-being. All of those ideas enhance our energy, enhance our life force, enhance our prana. So the idea of the bandhas is to contain the prana in the vessel of the body. So if our body is a vessel that contains prana, we don't want the prana to just dissipate out and away from the body. We'd like to find a way of containing our life force and enhancing it, and perhaps even getting a sense of creating more prana in our body. So the locks, the pelvic floor lock, which is Mulha Bandha. Mulha means root lock. Uddiyana Bandha, Uddiyana means flying up. It's the abdominal lock, and the flying upness of that description is the diaphragm lifts up into the rib cage, and that's why it's called Uddiyana Bandha. And the Jalandhara Bandha is the throat lock, so when we compress here, this is the sense of sealing off our energy at the top of the tube. So if we think about the nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, and that's probably the central energy channel of our prana. Still coronavirus, excuse me. That the spinal cord itself, and particularly in the yogic theory system, the very center of the spinal cord is a particular energy channel called Sushumna. Energy channels in yoga are called nadis. So Sushumna Nadi is the main central channel for prana. And so when we think about the bandhas locking, containing, harnessing, sealing energy in the body, it's actually a bit contradictory, because it's that sense that when we release, we allow the flood of prana to then move through the entire body. So it's a bit like a dam. You're damming the energy, you're bringing it all into a small reservoir, or even a huge reservoir, and then letting the floodgates open and releasing the energy throughout the body. So you could think about the bandhas being a bit like that. So the bandhas involve squeezing muscles, and we'll look at very specifically at the muscles that we use to contract and perform the bandhas. And here we talk about these contractions affecting the nervous system, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the endocrine system, and nerve impulses that are relayed to the brain trigger other neural circuits and nervous centers. And then in a response to all of that, we not only get a physical reaction, but we also get a conscious reaction. So in the yogic system, mind, body are intimately linked. There is no real separation. Prana in the physical system could be linked to matter. So prana is perhaps stuff that you can physically touch, see, feel. It's based much more in the sort of pragmatic, real sense of what we can perceive as real in the world. And then the opposite of that, although of course if everything is just one, there are no opposites, that we think about duality, and Vedanta, which is the oneness, there is no separation between black and white and so on. That the conscious aspect of life is intangible, that it has a kind of essence of not being able to be scientifically tested, seen, and resolved in a, in our minds, and the consciousness is very difficult to pin down. What is consciousness? And that's a huge philosophical question. But with this system of bandhas, we lock into prana, release prana, or contain prana, and that has an effect on our conscious mind experience as well as our physical experience. So when we're going to talk very specifically today about Mulha Bandha and the root lock, and we're going to say that when we contract the pelvic muscles, what will happen is, so we've got at the base of the spine, we've got parasympathetic nerve fibers. Now the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system is the rest and digest response. So in Hatha Yoga, we're always trying to return to the rest and digest response as a means of combating stress, anxiety, and tension in the body. So when we contract the pelvic floor, Mulha Bandha, we squeeze the parasympathetic nerve fibers at the base of the spine. So when we activate the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, that reduces our heart rate, lowers respiration, lowers blood pressure, and gives us a general sense of relaxation. So then that's going to, when we talk about consciousness, that's going to affect us on a mental and emotional level. So presumably if our nervous system response, if our respiratory, heart rate, blood pressure response lowers, we're going to feel better. We're going to limbically, emotionally feel calmer, more relaxed, and have a sense of well-being. Okay, so that's about Uddiyana Bandha, which we'll make a separate video about. Also affects the adrenal glands, so specifically for Mulha Bandha, that's going to be the gonads, the perineal body, the cervix, and the sexual endocrine glands. And there's a lot of stuff about Kundalini yoga and the bandhas, and kind of allowing us to resolve issues that we might have that are caused by tension, anxiety, repression, unresolved conflicts. And when we can resolve those tensions in ourselves, we come back to our true nature, our balanced self, the self that we would be without those underlying causes of tension and stress. So again, going into from the physical to the conscious, and how the bandhas affect us on that mental, emotional level as well as the physical level. According to the yogic scriptures, control of muscles and nerves controls the breath. Control of the breath controls consciousness. Bandhas are a means of extending control over breathing, and thus are a means to extend our knowledge and control over consciousness. Breathing rate and depth is said to be affected by states of consciousness. Alright, so let's think about some practice for Mulha Bandha. So we did a little bit of work on suction using the breath, so refer to that video previously on bandhas, and we'll do some practice now. People say that it's really difficult to find Mulha Bandha. I disagree completely. I think I found a really good, easy way for anybody to explore where their pelvic floor muscles are. Now, if you were to lie down on your back to start with, and just squeeze all your muscles, pelvic muscles. So let's have the heels together and the toes out to the side. If you push your pelvis up and squeeze your sitting bones together and contract the anus and squeeze your heels together, you'll feel lots of pelvic muscles contracting. So a lot of people just squeeze the anus because that's the one that feels most available. So I would just go ahead and do that so that you can know what the difference feels like when we do the proper Mulha Bandha. So I'm just squeezing my sitting bones together, squeezing my heels together. You can do this with your knees touching if you want, with your legs together and your toes out to the side. And that squeezing of the heels together. You don't have to lift your pelvis very high, but if you wanted to, really tense your buttocks and squeeze. Alright, so you feel, just get a sense of warming up your pelvic muscles. And let's do that on the breath. You'll relax every now and again. You don't need to be practicing at the same timing that I'm talking. So tilt your pelvis back, push the back of your waist into the floor, squeeze your sitting bones together, pull your pubic bone towards your tailbone, squeeze your anus and squeeze your glutes, and squeeze your heels together, squeeze your knees and your legs together, and that will help to really activate all the pelvic muscles. Then we're going to come into cat pose, which is on the hands and knees, knees, feet in parallel alignment. And I'm going to get you to just do a few cat curls to limber up. So in your normal way, you come into spinal extension, lift the head and chest, lift the sitting bones so you're tilting the pelvis forward, and then flex the spine, tuck the chin in towards the chest, tuck the tailbone under, and lift the spine up towards the ceiling. And breathe in, extend the spine, and this time when you flex your spine, tuck your tailbone down, round your back, just hold that position and try and squeeze your sitting bones together, your knees, your feet, squeeze your glutes, pulling at the navel, and then release. Okay, so in that way you are engaging lots of pelvic muscles. So
just do that one more time so again you can feel your pelvic muscles contracting, and then inhale and come into the other position. I'm going to try to, you're going to hold this position, and I'll get you to try to contract all those muscles again. So squeeze your sitting bones together, squeeze your pubic bone towards your tailbone, try and squeeze your knees together, try and squeeze your glutes, and hopefully you'll feel a more subtle lift into the pelvic floor and release it. Just take the weight off your hands for a moment, relax your wrists. You need to do this anytime if it gets too uncomfortable, weight bearing on your arms. We'll do that again so that you can really feel the pelvic floor specifically when we are in this position. Start by trying to push your knees away from each other, push your sitting bones away from each other, and that's going to stretch all the muscles of your pelvis. And then, keeping this position, then try to squeeze your glutes, squeeze your knees together, try to pull your sitting bones together and pull your pubic bone towards your tailbone. And hopefully, and it might feel quite subtle, but there's something going on deeper inside the pelvis. And all the superficial muscles around the anus cannot contract because of this anteriorly tilted position of the pelvis. So here the muscles of the glutes are stretched, and then when we try to contract the anus, we try to contract the muscles of the pelvic floor and try and pull the sitting bones together, what's happening is that action to try to do that is making us pull in at the pelvic floor. That's the only muscle that can really engage when we try to engage the other muscles. So I find that is a very useful thing to do in any of the positions if you want to try and re-engage with your pelvic floor when you're in a stretched, when your glutes are stretched. Any of those kinds of positions are quite good to get that subtlety of the pelvic floor lift. So relax your hands and arms whenever you need to, and then come back onto the hands and knees when you're ready. And so when you're tucking under now, chin to chest, squeeze your pelvic floor muscles, squeeze your buttocks, anus, everything, and then try and hold that squeeze pelvic floor when you release. We'll re-engage the pelvic muscles when you tilt the pelvis forward, and then hold it or re-engage it more deeply when you tilt the pelvis back. Squeeze and tilt the pelvis back. So that's how I find the pelvic floor on a muscular level. So if we just take a moment now in sitting to any sitting position that you find comfortable, blocks, cushions, chairs, stools, we'll see how it feels on a mental and emotional level. So I hope you've managed to find the other benefits, before I forget, of the pelvic floor contractions, sometimes called Kegel exercises. In yoga we call Mulha Bandha, is that we can prevent prolapse in the vagina, and for prevention of inguinal hernias, urinary incontinence. And when you think that your pelvic organs rest on your pelvic floor, that if the pelvic floor is weak, it collapses. The lifting up of the pelvic floor helps to support the pelvic organs. So of course, all good for urinary health and
and also sexual health, sexual function. It's got benefits for. Anything else I've written down here? So just when I remember. Okay, so sitting comfortably and with a neutral spine, closing your eyes, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the face, relaxing the shoulders down. And as you breathe in, lift up through the pelvic floor, a feeling of trying to pull your sitting bones together, pubic bone towards the tailbone. You might want to contract your anal sphincter muscle as well, just to feel some engaging of the pelvis. But when you feel that, you know that you're probably doing more contraction of the superficial muscles than the deep pelvic floor muscles. So try to relax that sensation. On the inhale, lift the pelvic floor. And if you've been doing the intra-abdominal pressure exercises, on the exhalation, really suck the belly in. And lift the pelvic floor at the same time. The pelvic floor, especially when it's not very strong, melts away a lot, and so it takes a bit of training to switch it on and maintain the pelvic floor lift. So you do lots of repetitions to start with, or 20 repetitions to start with, and then learn to hold for slightly longer over time. And I'm just going to get you to do one more really focused practice on breathing, lifting the pelvic floor, trying to keep your buttocks relaxed, drawing in the navel, holding for as long as you can. Imagine the squeeze on the parasympathetic nerve endings at the base of the spine, and then release. And notice what happens. Squeeze and release. Squeeze and release. And then you can just rest for a few moments and with your eyes closed, just notice how you feel. Maybe repeat that practice a few more times in your own time and space.